All right, Paul Mirande, 5-0 versus Taotao Chu, also 5-0. Azalea versus Uzuri. And is this the Azalea at the table that just hit the lottery of red arrows?
I do believe that is the case. And as we start up this matchup, the casual fist bump, which you love to see, good sportsmanship all the way around. And it looks like Paul is going to take the lead here and start off with a Spider's Bite pitching that yellow Seek Horizon. And we're going to pop off the Seekers right away, choosing to block some damage and opt, paying the 1 with, looks like just a solid little yellow Withering shot.
I think early on it's okay to do this. You're drawing up anyways, so might as well get use of this equipment again. In limited, valuable equipment is very scarce. You know, those legendaries that you're pulling, or those majestics or such, they're not going to be as frequent. You know, this isn't a constructed matchup, so coveting equipment isn't the same. If you are on the draw, as it were, when you're on the receiving end to start, you want to make sure that you're getting the proper efficiency out of your hand, out of your cards. So throwing cards up there, paying for the block damage is the way you want to rock it.
Yeah, here we have the he's coming in with Infect. Now I can't quite make out what color that is, but at this point in the game, you can feel very comfortable just chucking 2 cards in front of this, because the number that you kind of want to track here is always that 6 block. There are a very few number of cards that get you to 7 in this format. 5 and 6 is what you want to kind of hover around, which means a 2-card block almost all the time. And if that's the case, on turn 0, just chuck 2.
So both players drawing up. Taotao Chu now. It's on him here. How does he want to approach this? One of the things that I found about playing this particular format, Outsiders Draft, is that this isn't necessarily one of those formats where it's like, all right, let's just keep our deck lean, get to our threats as fast as possible. Oftentimes, this entire format just kind of leans towards players really stacking their decks a lot taller and playing the longer game.
Yes.
For a format that can be very quick, oftentimes it might actually go to fatigue. As we see over here now, the Azalea is firing off those arrows, getting things ready to rock and roll over here, as he's not done yet. That's a toxicity that's loading up one hell of an attack.
Scout the periphery into toxicity into Skybound Shot. Now, I think this is
Oh,
only
no.
a blue Skybound Shot, but you don't care because it does have Dominate, and this basically just spells Doom. Well, or D-O-M-I. Dominate, never mind. Just kidding. It spells Dominate. Nevertheless, this is just a lot of damage is coming this way.
It's that was my favorite game growing up on PC when I was like a teenager, was Dom.
There you go.
Yeah, I couldn't afford the extra O. We didn't get it in Canada. We got the knockoff version. Instead of Doom, it was Dom. Either way, this toxicity, that 8 damage, is just the first chapter of this nasty story that Tao is just throwing his way. That is an on-hit additional lose 5. So Paul here doesn't have the benefit of equipment to close the gap over here, as 8 Dominate is what is on the hook. If this connects, he's going to lose an additional 5 on top.
Yeah, this is such a solid play. Even with a blue, you're looking at the power that Azalea has access to, and choosing to Dominate here. It's just a blue, but because it came face up, we can activate Crow's Nest and be able to kind of give that a aim counter over, giving another +1 thanks to the card effect, and then just pushing extra damage. So it's just incredibly powerful.
So that's a nasty way to start. And again, when you're the only Azalea at the table and you're getting fed an immense amount of just nasty, nasty arrows, your quiver is full, it's brimming, it is sharpened. As Taotao Chu at 5-0, look at this. You're getting everything I have.
Oh,
I think,
and this is great. You are blocking with the card. You're blocking with the equipment. So every piece of equipment gone, and you're blocking with the brush off as well, covering everything up possibly. Now, if you don't cover it up, then you have to deal with the toxicity as well, which is nutty, because that was threatening so much damage. 8 plus the additional 5 after the fact.
so apparently two Azaleas at the table that we're drafting over here still. If they're far away from each other, they're going to be fed like crazy. As you can see, Taotao Chu's list that I think both of Brian and yourself were tracking a lot of this of what they were drafting. And just in terms of power level, what was your take on what this deck was just packing?
So I was watching the Uzuri drafter on the side, and I didn't actually see where Paul was sitting. I wasn't able to see Paul's portion of the draft, but I was told, and it looks rightfully so, that Taotao's Azalea draft was just coming up roses, if you will. And a solid little swing back there for 5. Some of that taken. And look at these life totals. After that one big, long, just giant hit avoided, Taotao now at the life deficit, but coming again with the possible extra buff there. Yeah, it is going to come across. I believe that's a withering shot coming for 8.
Blocking's the name of the game, and now we can see precisely why it was important to perhaps go over the deck minimum here, because a lot of these attacks are buying 3 cards out of Paul's hand. So if you're playing lean, you might get just completely dried up real fast. So in keeping a nice, thick, robust deck is important here in order to just keep pace with some of these tall attacks, especially when Azalea can have, all the ways to pump those arrows sky high.
And Paul here is just going to block with everything, take his turn, pass completely. He used every piece of equipment just to try and avoid that massive damage. And there's the swap in. Oh, and this is going to deal a lot of damage as well. This is just a barrage of power cards.
I like how it's not even on the board yet. It's not even on the combat chain. He's like, yeah, get prepared, my friend. This is going to be dominated, but we're going to actually just put a few extra sprinkles on this one that we're going to send. So knocking the bow, and here it comes.
He's going to play down the Lace with Blood Rot to give +3. Going to play Come to Fight as well. I think that's a Come to Fight yellow, but I can't quite make it out. Either way, we're adding either 1, 2, or 3 with that Come to Fight as well. So this is going to be pushing a massive amount of damage with the Dominate as well. Looks like 12 damage on Dominate, and you can't get around this one this time.
No, and did you say, is that a Lace with Blood Rot?
Yes. So
okay.
That's gonna give the Blood Rot Pox as well, which is going to force an extra 2 damage. Just look, you can see both players are just chuckling by the just sheer power that this deck is outputting.
So the fun part about this is, like, you still need to find the right recipe to bake a cake this nasty, which is essentially you got to find the right recipe of an arrow plus some pumps. And we've seen it with other heroes like Briar sometimes when you have to have that delicate balance of being able to push that kind of power level. Sometimes you draw poorly. It seems like Taotao Chu here has found, all right, non-attack, dominated arrow. He's found the right way to do it, to push it through. Paul Mirande now down to 11, but you got to give him credit because he's been staring down these enormous attacks and he has been resilient.
Yeah, so here we have Wither coming across for 3, and definitely with a 2-card hand, you can definitely expect some amount of switch activation here. Switchblade possibly being triggered, and we could swap out a card. But let's see if that actually occurs. Now, that Arsenal's been there for 2 turns. Unfortunately, he hasn't been able to string anything together, and we know, because he didn't play it on that turn previous, oh, no, he's just going to pitch away to do the the Blood Rot Pox trigger.
I know the Blood Debt. I mean, there's chain sleeves, so
that's right. That must have
distracted you.
Gotta be, right? So we know that card in the arsenal is not a 0 cost or not an attack. So we can kind of pin that on maybe a reaction or maybe a larger attack that we had to slip into the arsenal earlier.
All right. Flipping. I see. Is that a infecting shot?
It is and played with a Scout the Periphery as well. So this is going to add the extra buff on infecting shot.
Infecting Shot is so nasty in Limited because even without the Dominate, the breakpoint now of 7, it's got the aim counter on it as well. So it's a nice strong shot, it's a nice strong arrow, but on hit you get that Blood Rot token, and again a little extra tax at the end of the turn. And when you're playing against a hero like Azalea that can dominate your arrows, that can close out games, you have to be very protective of that life total.
Yeah, and look, I think this is very smart. Paul is taking a moment to take stock of both players' cards left in deck, because if you have an advantage there, Zuri does have the capability of maybe blocking out and just protecting life total and trying to play the fatigue game, because when you're up against a ranger that doesn't have a weapon, you do always have the capacity to maybe go for a fatigue strategy. Just force them down to blue arrows that don't provide enough value or damage, and then start swinging.
It's definitely a viable strategy here. Having a weapon that swings is an advantage late game. Taotao Chu has to make sure that every single arrow that he fires does connect for damage, because eventually Paul Mirande is just going to figure it out and say, if you're not dominating these and I'm just trading cards with you, even if it's you load up 2 cards and I give you 3, I'm okay with that. You're going to run out of hours, you're going to run out of dominate effects, and then even though it might take a while, my daggers are going to get you.
Yeah, so he's flipping up Spire Sniping here and looking at the top 2 cards of the deck, trying to order them how best he sees fit. You're obviously looking for some amount of, like Azalea swap-ins for Dominate so that you can find an arrow that you want to swap in. Got to pay for it, of course. You have to plan out your turn with possible buffs or anything of that nature, and just trying to line up the correct play across the board. I do believe is that a red Spire Sniping? It could be either a red or a blue, but either way, it is going to gain that aim counter, which doesn't actually have any utility here.
It looks cool.
Man, that aim counter looking real good.
It's like putting racing stripes on your car. You know, it doesn't necessarily make it go faster, but damn it, do you look cool.
You feel better about it.
So that card, Spire Sniping, actually is a card that has made its way into a lot of constructed lists as a way to sort of just have a peek at the top of the list. Azalea's run, I think, a couple blues just to sort of shore up some of the, just gain information of what's the top. Can I activate Azalea or should I just wait? And in this case, a red Spire Sniping is just a 5 attack, which again is a devastating thing, especially when it's potentially dominated. Not in this particular case, but it's still 5 damage. It is still protecting, it's still presenting a threat, but he's opting in this case to actually go ahead and hit the Azalea. Again, the Spire Sniping giving him the information of what's at top to make sure that he's making a safe decision here.
Yep, and he did choose to put it to the bottom, and he's going to bring in a Lace with Inertia. I believe that's Lace with Inertia. Yes, it is. So he's swapping in Lace with Inertia, which tells us that he's most likely going to pay that last resource and drop an arrow into the arsenal. Will not have Dominate. It's just simply an arrow in the arsenal, but he's giving a buff there with Inertia and possibly threatening an Inertia token.
Azalea is a very intimidating hero to play in Limited, I find, when you're drafting and you're not necessarily sure, but it can also be the most powerful in certain cases because Dominate in Limited, I find, with those small life totals, can really make short work of a potential hero that just disrespects it.
Mm-hmm. So this is actually representing 10 total damage. Now, the way Widowmaker works is that if Widowmaker receives 2 blocking cards of any type, it will lose the +3 from its ability. So technically, it's gaining +3 stat like across the board right now. But the moment it gets blocked by 2 cards or more, it's going to drop that effect and drop back down to 7. So this could represent 10 damage or 7 damage. And most likely, this is going to beg for 2 cards.
It should be. I mean, if you block with 2 cards, you're effectively almost blocking with 3, right? You're taking 3 more damage off the board. You're getting that much more reprieve from this onslaught that Tao's firing his way. This volley of arrows has been relentless. Paul's done a very good job of keeping that life total in the double digits and doing a little counting there to check how much is left in Taotao's list and how much is in that deck. I think it counted something like there's I don't know if there was like 11 or 12 cards left, so he's approaching the end game. These games are so quick. We have been spoiled with those long, exciting CC games, and here we are where it is fast, it is furious, and this 10-spot arrow is doing work as Paul is really just making sure he's taking stock of everything here. This is going to be a 2-card block. I don't see how it can't be. It's maybe he just found a hand that he's really coveting, but how in the world can Paul, justify going down to 1 here?
The crazy part about I don't think he's ever going to justify going down to 1. I don't think you can ever survive in a reality where you've taken 10 on this turn. But the really interesting thing is we know, and that looks like that is 1 in hand, that's possibly a shakedown in the hand. We know that shakedown is floating around in there, and I wonder if he's holding a shakedown and he's trying to decide if he tosses possibly 2 other cards and then has a stealth card plus shakedown. He'd be able to shake down for free, basically. And a spreading play. So he's gonna lay it down. He's gonna brush off here as well. So he's definitely saying that he wants to take the fatigue strategy with this exact block. By giving up 3 cards here, you're thinking this is definitely the strategy that we're playing towards.
Ultimately, though, you got to think in terms of just keeping track of what's going on. Paul Mirande said, all right, well, you gave me 2 cards. I can give you 3. That's a net loss of 1. Counting up how much I have, how much you have, how much can I keep this up? Yeah. Ultimately, he knows that there's a red Widowmaker at the bottom of the deck, I believe, or it was a Spire Sniping. It might have been a Spire Sniping, I think, that was recycled earlier on. So the Spire Sniping is going to come up eventually. There's another red arrow that he's cycling, so he's setting himself up for some late-game theatrics as well.
Yeah, but he has something here. Another Spire Sniping dropping into the arsenal off of the bow here. And that plus this melting point could really push a lot of damage and hamper a little bit of this perhaps perceived strategy if we could blow up one of those daggers.
All right, so melting point giving the next arrow attack +4, and that is business, friends. But if that arrow has an aim counter, it gets nastier. But take a look at how huge this attack's going to be, friends. And that, I believe, is it dominated?
He is dropping down the works here. I don't believe this was dominated because it did drop from the hand. Or it could be. Yeah, no, it was dominated because, yes, he Spire Sniping'd it in. And he's going to give him the 1 card plus the Blood Rot Trap here. And Blood Rot Trap is going to come down, but not trigger, because I believe it triggers off of reactions. Nevertheless, this is blocking a larger chunk of damage, but it's giving a frailty. It's going to destroy one of those daggers and pushing a lot of extra damage over the top. Now, at this point, Taotao has to think, okay, I've pushed a lot of damage. I have maybe what? At this point, plus those 4 cards, maybe I have 10 cards total in circulation left. I need to find a turn where I can dominate another arrow with like double buffs, and I can close this game out. But if I miss that window, it might just be over.
So is this a switcheroo right here, I believe, that's occurring?
No, I think he sent both attacks.
Right.
Yeah, I think he sent both attacks, but I mean, of course, Taotao playing with so much life, he could just take it.
Yeah, he's just happy to take it in his hand. He's got to come to fight as well, so the next arrow is going to be buffed up, loading one of them, and he's saying, all right.
Spire Sniping again.
Spire Sniping is putting in a lot of work, so this is going to give some information to Taotao. Does he get another dominated arrow? Keep in mind, there's another come to fight as well, so whatever is going to be played here is going to get a nice little pat on the back in order to just put this high enough is the question. Will it get there? If you assume that this is going to be blocked for 3, if this arrow comes in, if you can block 3, then if this arrow comes in for 8 dominate, then that should be lights out, unless that's a D-react in the arsenal.
Oh, so Infecting Shot comes in. It's going to get the aim counter from the Crow's Nest. This is going to push 6 vanilla, just base already. And there's the come to fight. Going to pitch the final card in hand to push this, I believe, for 9 total. 9, and it does have dominate. I could be wrong. Maybe misrepresenting with the dice. Perhaps that's like a blue come to fight. But we would still be having a very large attack totally.
I'm curious to see. So it's still with the aim counter. Wondering what the situation is here. Ultimately, we're going to trust the players that this is well accounted for and such. And still, you're cobbling together a pretty decent turn. Was that a block with 2 cards?
No, one of them was brush off. So he brushed off the remainder of the damage and avoided the dominate here.
Brush off is the key card, but it does have some limitations because if it's 4 damage coming in, you can't use it. It has to be 3 or less, right, with that brush off that was used. So it's got to just fit in precisely. You can't let anything leak through. And I don't think Paul Mirande really wants anything to leak through. But look what he's doing here. Again, just a little bit of pressure. Bit of pressure.
At this point, Taotao can't, because he has such a small cards left in deck number, he just can't really commit too many cards to just full block everything. And he's living in this world where, and look, we're going to be able to see it together. He's got, 5 cards left in deck, 4 cards left in deck, and you're starting to see a lot of those blue arrows. And at this point, we might see Spire Sniping become the only source of real, true offense. And Paul being able to possibly squeeze this game out on the back of 1 Spider's Bite and fatigue.
Imagine just out of some crazy reality where there's 2 melting points and he just ices out both of those daggers and both players can't do anything.
That you know what, it's interesting you mentioned that, because at a pre-release I was talking to a good friend of mine named Ian, said that he literally got to an eventuality where the game drew to a stall because both players could not attack anymore.
Oh, that's true. I mean, those daggers roll for 2, right? And if you're just stuck with reds left, with 1 red left, you cannot play it. So ultimately, that's it. It just becomes a stare down, and there it is. Well, that's a 4 dominate, and work is being done. Taotao Chu here at 10. You got to suspect that he's just going to start letting some of that damage roll through it in order to preserve that deck size. And if he's just got a bunch of red arrows, though, the silver lining here is that if you've got a small deck size and you know what's coming up, you can guarantee that when you start using that Azalea ability, you're going to be getting dominated arrows.
Yeah, the issue here is that he's holding on to 1 card in hand. There's maybe 4 cards left in deck, if that. And so everyone knows it's basically at this point a known quantity what's left in the deck, and it's most likely just a bunch of blue arrows. And this is the nightmare scenario for Taotao. Your opponent's sitting at 5. That is not good enough striking distance. Oh, the peace of mind punishes that. That feeling just feels so bad when peace of mind comes down, creates that ponder, just covering up so much of that damage and basically making this almost out of reach, it feels.
Peace of Mind, a card that when it was, revealed, a lot of people were kind of on the fence about it, but it sort of wheeled itself into relevancy a lot off the back of the creation of the Ponder token to recover a card. It has been seen in a lot of Oldhim lists, but here it is becoming a champion of the limited format.
Yeah, he's got the Spider's Bite attack here. Probably just going to have to let that through. There's 4 cards in circulation, 2 cards in deck, 1 card in arsenal, and not much else to show for it. Going to draw up himself, and looks like Paul's down to about 3 cards left in deck as well. Yeah, 3 cards. So it's literally down to just the wire of fatigue of who can squeeze out the last points of damage, and it may just come down to the fact that Paul can swing the Spider's Bite.
It's going to be a slow death, but you can eventually get there kind of thing. The question is, there's another Spire sniping. So we're going to take a look at the top cards here. Tao needs to start really banking off the dominate of these arrows coming through. It's going to be a 5, which is a nice number to poke through. But the question is does he have enough leeway here? Does he have enough runway to actually land this plane? Because he's running out of gas.
I just really want to know that if he has another Spire sniping and there's 1 card left in deck, if he actually does the Spire sniping trigger. If he looks at the card to try and order it. I think that would be hilarious. Nevertheless, throwing Spire sniping for that 5 damage with Dominate.
Best case scenario here, Paul blocks 3, maybe has a D-React in Arsenal, maybe, clears it up, but that's a 2-for-1 trade card-wise. Tao might be happy with that. I think that at this juncture, he just wants to start connecting for damage. I think that he's getting a little worried. If we rewind this 10 minutes and we go back to those turns where there was 12 dominate, 9 dominate, Paul did an exceptional job of staying relevant and staying alive.
Wow.
And wow, there is another D-React.
Yep, you called it. That is an insanely good moment to feel on Paul's side of just, I think that is the feeling, that possible turning point. He's going to take the 1 and he's going to come in with Plunge. No, I think he's just swinging Plunge here first.
All right, it buys a card out of hand over here. I'm really curious regarding Tao's decision to start donating cards to attacks that I don't think would put him over the top here. They're trading cards. I think Tao could have just taken that, maybe maintain some of those attacks.
Well, you have to watch out for Plunge because it gives the buff to the dagger, which could make things even more uncomfortable. And there's the swap in.
But he attacked with the dagger already.
No, he had not. He chose before. He was going to swing it, and then he chose to start with Plunge.
Oh, see, I was duped.
The Rope-a-Dope Switchblade right there. And there's the, I think it's a 6 power Dominate Skybound Shot. But because you haven't been able to push those, just last arrows of damage, because on the back of those defense reactions and instants like Brush Off, this is not guaranteed lethal, and it might just spell the end with 4 cards now totally in circulation. Drawing everything, there's no way to dominate an arrow at this point.
That's a fascinating question. Is Intellect, you have to draw up to 4, or do you have okay, I mean, there would have been definitely a consideration there to actually keep 1 card on the top of the deck if that were the case, but Paul down to 2. No more opportunity here for a dominated arrow, so he is out of the woods in that regard.
Virulent touch. Red from the Arsenal says, hey, do you want to block this with your 4 cards left in hand and 0 cards in deck? The answer is no. And Paul says, okay, well, I got my 3 cards. You got your 4 cards. What are you going to do?
Here it comes. Hey, why not? That is is that a withering shot? No, that is a okay, no, that's he's okay.
He is. Wait, he is able, based on the Azalea ability, you are able to gain Dominate off of bottoming and then topping.
That's
off
true.
Of bottoming from a deck and then topping off of the Azalea effect, you are able to gain Dominate. And at this moment, At this moment, you wonder.
Look at Paul. Paul's like, okay, I need to double check that this is possible here because we're going to go to a judge call here to just clean this up. But that is an interesting interaction here. If there's nothing in the deck, you're bottoming and then drawing. Is it in order? How is this sequenced and such? We're going to go ahead and clear this out. And so as they're kind of figuring that out, I think that we're getting the sort of the nod from some of the others around here saying that, yeah, that's a totally legal play from what I understand.
We'll see. That is really, really cool. And it's down to this because, honestly, if you're able to dominate one more arrow, that probably closes this game. But if not, it may be the only arrow that you fire left in this game because you're sitting at 3 with your opponent at 3 cards and a weapon that can swing.
All right, so new strategy, Azaleas. Go down to 0 cards and just dominate that arrow. That's the easiest way. It's a guarantee. Nothing in life is guaranteed except dominating that last arrow when you are completely out of cards.
And I'll tell you what, there was a lot of people when the set kind of was fully spoiled that said Skybound Shot, worst arrow in the set. And here it might win a game. It might straight up win the game. Let's go ahead and jump back down. It says we were told that the...
Yeah, we're yeah, so the Azalea one over here, it's they're just sort of like figuring it out. You can see Paul's just kind of, they're having a discussion. They're gonna check the rule books. Tao here saying, "Dude, this great game. I'm reading lips." Paul's like, "Hey, that's a really cool shirt you got. Thanks for coming on by. Have you tried Chipotle?" Brian Gottlieb says it's amazing. It's the food of my people. And Taotao says, "I've never had it. It sounds disgusting, but I appreciate."
What a way to finish, though, dominating off of a 0 cards in deck. Azalea activation so that you can push the final points of damage. Azalea and Taotao picking it up when it looked quite dicey at the end there.
Well, Dominate is a very powerful mechanic in a format where there are no guarantees. D-React, it seems like Paul had a ton of them, actually.